What are you doing? During my husband's funeral, my 5-year-old daughter discarded the $600 condolence money from my sister into the trash can. I exclaimed, "Pick it up immediately! That's something important!" Startled by my voice, my daughter muttered,
"This is unnecessary,"
tears welling up in her eyes. I retorted, "That can't be true."
"Well then, Dad wants you to check the contents."
Even though my husband was no longer in this world, why was my daughter saying such things? At that moment, I recalled something. Could it be that she was hearing it again? Swiftly, I picked up the condolence money, maintaining a calm facade. After everyone had left, I opened the envelope, and what I saw was beyond belief. My name is Olivia Brown, and I'm a 31-year-old nurse. I have a sister named Elsa, and we've been arguing since childhood. Elsa seems to dislike me for various reasons and takes every opportunity to harass me when our parents aren't looking. I remember once asking her for the reason behind her behavior, and she replied,
"You took Mom and Dad away from me."
Our kind parents treated both of us equally, but it seems that wasn't enough for Elsa. Despite the constant bickering, things changed when I was 25. I met Richard, a pharmacist, through work connections. Our relationship blossomed smoothly, and we eventually got married and had a daughter. However, Elsa didn't approve and started contacting me just to make snide remarks.
"He seems shady and untrustworthy. Definitely going to cheat on you, right? You should break up."
Not only did she criticize me, but she also insulted my husband, Richard. Frustrated, I stopped answering her calls. But then she bombarded me with an avalanche of emails. Even after our daughter was born, the stress of parenting made me feel like I was on the edge. Avoiding my sister as much as possible, I visited our parents' house one day. To my surprise, Elsa, who rarely came home, was there. I don't want to deal with this. I thought I'd finish my business and leave quickly. Little did I know that my sister had something devious up her sleeve.
"Did you receive my gift?"
With a wicked smile, she whispered from behind. "Huh? What are you talking about?"
"I sent something nice for your daughter's 5th birthday."
"Oh, really? Thanks. I'll let you know when it arrives." Seeing my cautious response, Elsa looked satisfied and muttered, before leaving the house,
"My condolences."
Wait, what does she mean by that? Then, my husband called me.
"Elsa sent a package."
It seems like a birthday gift for Emma.
Huh? She hasn't sent anything in the past 5 years.
Richard was right. My sister had never sent anything for Emma's birthday or any other occasion in the 5 years since her birth. But there was something unsettling about Elsa's recent behavior. "Feel free to throw it away if it's something strange," I told my husband. He opened the package and said,
"Looks like fancy pastries from a famous bakery."
For a moment, I thought I was overreacting, but something bothered me. Would my sister really send such treats to Emma? Lost in thought, I remained silent, listening to the voices on the other end of the phone. My husband scolded Emma.
"Give it back."
And then Emma's high-pitched voice chimed in.
"But I can't eat this. It'll upset my stomach."
My husband insisted.
"That doesn't mean you should throw food in the trash."
Meanwhile, Emma continued to sob, repeating,
"But..."
Upon hearing that conversation, I exclaimed in a loud voice, "Richard! Wait!" and shared Emma's story with Richard. Initially skeptical, my husband seemed to sense something as he listened to my account. He apologized.
If you insist, I'll check the suites in my office. Sorry for getting upset.
Emma's mood improved after his apology, and she cheerfully added,
It's okay, but usually, I take good care of my food.
Hearing their conversation over the phone, I felt relieved and ended the call. Later that night, Richard revealed an astonishing truth.
When I had it checked at our university hospital, the pastries turned out to contain a potent laxative.
I gasped. Are you serious?
Someone must have injected it without opening the package.
I shuddered, thinking about Emma potentially eating them. Richard reassured me.
We didn't notice anything. Emma's vigilance saved us.
Agreed. If my sister sends anything else, let's dispose of it without opening it. Filled with fear and anger at Elsa's abnormal behavior, I immediately contacted her. Why did you send something like that?
Oh, it arrived safely. How was it? Impressive, right?
What do you mean? I didn't eat those pastries. You've gone too far. Realizing her plan had failed due to my words, Elsa muttered,
Honestly, you've always annoyed me. You should become even more miserable.
Then she abruptly hung up the phone. Is she planning to harm Emma again? Terrified by my sister's words, I discussed with Richard and decided to prioritize our daughter's safety by adjusting our work schedules. Our days were far from happy as we lived cautiously, unable to go out on weekends and keeping the curtains drawn day and night. Whether Elsa knew it or not, she hadn't sent a single phone call or email, leaving me wondering if she'd given up entirely. And in the blink of an eye, 4 months had passed since the pastries incident. On a hot summer night when my guard had slightly lowered, I murmured to myself while putting Emma to bed. Lately, Elsa has been quiet, and our days are peaceful. Just then, my phone rang loudly, and it was the hospital calling to inform me that my husband had been rushed to the emergency room. They said he was in critical condition. I immediately took Emma and headed to the hospital where he had been taken. Upon arriving at the hospital room, I was met with the sight of my husband lying there, seemingly asleep. No treatments or machines were attached to him. The nurse's intuition told me, "Oh, he's beyond saving." The subsequent memories are hazy, and I can't recall exactly what the hospital staff explained to me or how I conveyed the situation to Emma. But one thing remains vivid: the doctor's words.
It's difficult to attribute this to an accident. He might have been harmed by someone.
What does that mean? I heard Richard collapsed in an alley, alone, with no one around. With a heavy heart, the day of parting with my husband arrived. The venue was filled with hundreds of people, his colleagues, friends, and acquaintances. As I observed the crowd, I couldn't help but appreciate Richard's character and the respect he commanded. It seems that many people are genuinely drawn to him. As I thanked each mourner individually and managed the reception, my sister suddenly appeared.
It's been quite a struggle for you, hasn't it? Well, here's $600 to lift your spirits,
She said, tossing an offering envelope onto the reception desk. Thank you. I watched her smirk as she entered the hall. After tracking her with my eyes, I glanced down and noticed that the envelope from my sister had vanished. What are you doing? My daughter was throwing the $600 condolence money from my sister into the trash can. Tearfully, she responded.
This is something we don't need.
Shocked by her defiance, I insisted. That can't be true. Pick it up immediately.
Then, check the contents.
What?
Dad said so.
Emma insists that the words are from my late husband, who is no longer in this world. At that moment, I recalled something startling. You see, my daughter possesses a mysterious ability, one I've noticed since she began speaking. Emma shared stories about my grandmother, whom she couldn't possibly have known. As these revelations repeated, I began to believe in Emma's power. Could it be? Did she hear it again? I quickly picked up the condolence envelope, careful not to attract attention. When everyone had left, I opened it, and an astonishing item lay before me. What is this? My anger toward my sister, who had casually handed me this, surged. But was it true? Since my husband had passed away, I couldn't ask him directly. Richard's words would have to be conveyed through Emma. However, not everyone might believe my daughter's account. That's why I needed irrefutable evidence. I wouldn't accept that my husband's death was a mere accident. Determined to avenge him, I delved into his past, uncovering truths beyond my wildest imagination. Armed with this evidence, I prepared to cast my sister into hell. 1.5 months later, we held a memorial meeting to remember my husband. We gathered with relatives for a meal. My sister plopped down in front of the food as if she couldn't wait to eat. Despite not everyone being present yet, she grabbed a beer and started eating. Elsa, everyone isn't here yet, so hold off.
I came here hungry and ready to feast. Don't nitpick.
Suppressing my anger, I took a deep breath and faced her squarely. You're right. It's your last supper, so do as you please. She snapped.
What do you mean?
You'll understand soon. I'm returning your words verbatim. My condolences. Confused, she stammered.
Wait, what are you saying? What do you mean by last?
Despite her flustered state, I ignored her and finished preparing for today's main event. Standing before our relatives, I began my address. Today, we gather to honor my late husband, Richard. Thank you all for being here. As I expressed gratitude to everyone present, some of our relatives wiped away tears, perhaps remembering him in his prime. In the midst of it all, my sister continued to devour her food like a famished hyena. Today, in addition to the memorial meeting, we have gathered to alleviate my husband's lingering regrets. I announced. Elsa, who had been engrossed in her meal, suddenly froze at my words. Richard was found collapsed in an alley after a work-related drinking party. The cause was a severe blow to the back of his head. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Then, out of nowhere, my sister's high-pitched voice pierced the air.
Are you playing detective now? Seriously, Richard probably just slipped on the stairs while drunk and hit his head. You're not suggesting someone else did this, are you?
My previously silent sister suddenly launched into a rapid-fire monologue. Initially, I thought it was an accident too. But on the day of the funeral, I received something that raised suspicions. I powered up my computer and projected the letter from the condolence money my sister had left that day. The screen displayed the repeated phrase, "Do not take Richard. Do not brainwash Richard. Cast you into hell, cast you into hell, cast you into hell." Amidst the eerie atmosphere, my relatives were left dumbfounded by the disturbing text. However, my sister glared at me with a ferocity that could pierce steel.
That's right. This woman stole my Richard. We were dating. Thief!
she exclaimed. I calmly responded. No, that's not true. My husband was never in a relationship with you. Undeterred, my sister continued.
Lies. Richard and I were lovers. We even promised to get married. You're the one who snatched him away.
Ignoring her persistent outbursts, I projected a notebook onto the screen. This is a diary my husband consistently wrote in. Whether he had a cold or returned home drunk, he faithfully recorded something in this notebook every day. And your name appears repeatedly in this diary, I revealed. The room buzzed with speculation. So, were they really involved? But my next words silenced them once more. Elsa engaged in stalking behavior toward my husband. With that declaration, I opened the actual pages of his diary, revealing the truth to everyone. According to what was written, it seems that my husband has been stalked by my sister, and he has been trying to handle it on his own without causing me any worry. He apparently asked colleagues and friends not to mention it to me because he didn't want to worry me about the troublesome person who posed a danger.
You're lying. You're the one who took him away. He belongs to me. Admit that you're at fault.
Come on. Richard told me about this.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Emma has a mysterious ability. She can communicate with the deceased. Upon hearing these words, my sister and everyone present exchanged surprised glances. The reason I decided to look at my husband's diary was because my daughter had informed me that Richard had said Elsa was stalking him.
Wait, are you kidding me? She has psychic abilities? Creepy.
My sister burst into laughter, then turned to Emma and spat out.
Disgusting.
Fed up with her behavior, I confronted my sister. Who's the creepy one here? You relentlessly pursued Richard and then sent him to the afterlife.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
You seem quite shaken.
Well, of course. You suddenly dropped that bombshell on me.
As the tension rose among the relatives, I glanced at them and then returned to my computer, playing a certain video once more. That was a recording on my husband's smartphone of a conversation when my husband was summoned by my sister on the day he passed away. He felt in danger, so he secretly recorded the video to avoid alerting my sister. Additionally, the video clearly captured Elsa pushing my husband down the stairs.
No, no! Stop it! Delete it!
This is evidence.
Why? His phone was shattered. How?
My husband's phone lay broken next to him, the screen shattered into pieces. However, somehow, the data inside was recovered.
I thought there was no way it would be discovered.
At that moment, my daughter Emma arrived and playfully tapped my sister's shoulder.
Aunt Elsa, ever heard of, what goes around comes around? If you harm others, it'll come back to haunt you. Dad says so.
Clearly, everyone around was surprised by the words that a 5-year-old wouldn't normally use, and my sister, finally believing in my daughter's abilities, began to tremble.
I just wanted to take everything away from you. I apologize. Please forgive me.
With a tear-streaked face, Elsa clung to my feet, but I forcefully pushed her away. I'll never forgive you for taking away my beloved husband, Emma's adored dad. With determination, I uttered those words, and my sister collapsed to her knees. Afterward, my sister was arrested for the crime of pushing Richard down the stairs, as the audio and video evidence proved decisive. Now, she spends her days reflecting behind bars. However, given my sister's history, I'm skeptical about the authenticity of the letter she sent. Occasionally, I converse with Richard through Emma. Yet, Emma recently mentioned,
I can't hear Dad's voice anymore.
I'm uncertain whether Emma's abilities are waning or if Richard believes we're okay now and has stopped communicating. As a gentle breeze, hinting at spring, caressed my face, I gazed up at the sky. Both Emma and I take pride in knowing you were my husband and her beloved father. Keep resting peacefully, Richard, my dear husband and loving dad.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time.
Unable to sleep due to restlessness, I welcomed the morning at 6 o'clock on the sofa. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Charles. It seems our grandchild has been safely born. Robert, wake up! Maria did her best. Let's go to the hospital. I shook my sleeping husband next to me and hurriedly started getting ready. Maria! Charles! When we arrived at the hospital, there was one more person besides the two of them, a tiny life. Do you have a name? Have you decided? Charles replied,
No. We didn't even know the gender, so we would decide after the birth. By the way, it's a girl.
I see. I hope she gets a good name. Our granddaughter slept in Maria's arms on the hospital bed. Looking at her, I remembered Maria's appearance from years ago. Maria said,
Mom, want to hold her?
Is it okay? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, weight, and scent were all identical. The adorable innocence naturally softened my expression. Look, it's Grandma and Grandpa. Just as I was about to entrust the little life to Robert, something happened. He was drenched in sweat, trembling violently. Wait, what's wrong? Robert stammered.
Don't let that baby near me!
What was going on? I looked at Maria and Charles, but both of them had wide-open eyes. It was clear that I hadn't misheard. Maria asked, Dad, what are you saying? Charles wondered.
Is something wrong?
Robert said,
No, it's different. I feel a burning heat. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrifying heat from that fire.
My husband, Robert, is blind. 3 years ago, there was a massive fire at the scientific chemical plant where he worked, and unfortunately, he suffered burns to both eyes. Fortunately, his life was not in danger, but since then, Robert has lost his sight. Despite the fire, he remains bright and kind-hearted. The journey to this point involved immense struggle, inner conflict, and effort. While I can imagine it, understanding it is beyond words. Robert, is there anything I can help with? Robert replies,
I'm fine for now.
If anything comes up, don't hesitate to call. Robert chuckles.
I've gotten used to it. You can relax.
Although he always says that, true peace of mind eludes us, and we continue to worry about him both physically and emotionally. Despite his unfortunate circumstances, resilient Robert possesses a unique skill. Through conversation, he can glimpse the true intentions of others. He insists it's merely a heightened sense, not any kind of superpower, but from an outsider's perspective, it's an impressive ability. The notion that blindness sharpens hearing sensitivity is well known, supported by scientific theories. However, in Robert's case, his innate sensitivity to others' emotions seems to have intensified after losing his sight. As a result, both I and our daughter Maria, who lives with us, seek his judgment whenever something arises, a habit we can't break. Robert truly is a dependable presence. Recently, when Maria brought her partner home, Robert's sixth sense provided solid confirmation. A few years ago.
Let me introduce you. This is Charles.
Nice to meet you. I'm Charles. I've always been taken care of by Maria.
Charles, this young man, was polite and neatly dressed, a typical good-natured guy. Whether he was naturally fearless or simply adept at concealing it, he actively engaged in conversation. At that moment, Maria seemed more nervous than he did. Understandably so, her father has the power to read other people's minds. If anything seemed off, it would undoubtedly be brought up later. Apparently Charles had heard about Robert's blindness. He naturally didn't know about Robert's unique ability. Yet, there was nothing overly suspicious or unusual about Charles. On the contrary, he spoke with consideration for Robert, subtly showing his good impression. As it turned out, they were originally colleagues at work, and their interactions extended beyond professional boundaries. Robert listened intently to their stories. Later, as the sunset and darkness enveloped the surroundings, Charles bid his farewell. Robert shared his impressions of the young man.
I can't see his face, but he seems like a good person.
Upon hearing those words, Maria and I let out a sigh of relief, of course. I attempted to describe Charles's appearance to Robert, using a celebrity look-alike as an example.
Wait, you think he looks like that with his personality? He's too perfect. He might attract trouble.
Robert chuckled wryly. From then on, Charles often visited our home with Maria. He was impeccable in every way, always considerate of Robert's well-being. I felt immense relief, knowing that Charles could safely marry Maria. And then, a simple curiosity arose. May I ask something?
Certainly, what is it?
Since you are such a good person, I'd like to know about your parents. If it's okay, could you share? After a brief silence, Charles offered a rueful smile and began to speak.
I apologize. I lost my parents at an early age.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry for asking. His demeanor remained unchanged.
No, it's fine. But, well, there are things I've been thinking about. Since I couldn't properly fulfill my filial duties, if there's an opportunity, I'd like to do it on behalf of them. I believe it would bring them joy, and it would ease my own burden.
His confession felt like an unspoken plea, a flood of emotions impossible to gauge.
So, in a way, I see yourselves in my parents. This time, I want to live without regrets.
As I finished listening to his words, I noticed Robert standing there, silently nodding. He had been listening to Charles's voice all along. Time passed, and the two of them were happily united. The wedding went smoothly, and afterward, Charles moved into our home. Even after marriage, he continued to care for us, especially my husband's well-being. However, there was one concern. Our house had a south-facing garden elevated by one level from the road. Occasionally, trash would be scattered there. Last week it happened 3 times, and this week twice. We considered whether crows or other birds might be responsible, but the frequency seemed too coincidental. Still, even if someone intentionally did it, the harm wasn't significant enough to make a fuss, so I kept it to myself. The season transitioned from early summer. Maria and Charles shared the joyful news of her pregnancy. Truly a cause for celebration. On the other hand, while accommodating Charles alone was manageable, the prospect of another addition made us consider moving. Given my husband's visual impairment, a barrier-free property seemed like a good idea. One night, as we discussed these matters, a rustling sound interrupted us.
Who's there?
Robert asked. It wasn't a gentle sound like the wind, it was rough, as if something had passed by. An uneasy feeling settled in. I couldn't rely on my husband at times like this. I mustered courage, grabbed the curtain, and pulled it open.
Oh my!
Hey, what's wrong?
Robert inquired, and in the darkness, we saw a crow's lifeless body amid the lush greenery. That moment, I became certain, the litter in our garden wasn't from birds but from a person with clear ill intent. After contacting the local government to handle the remains, I explained the situation and our suspicions to the three of them.
Why didn't you say anything earlier?
Robert asked. Until now, it truly seemed like wind-blown trash. The garbage bins aren't far, and I assumed it was bird-related. I replied. Maria suggested calmly, considering our options. Charles agreed, adding that raising the fence might help but wouldn't address the root issue. Robert proposed installing security cameras, and after much discussion, we decided to do just that. About a week after installing the cameras, Maria, now pregnant, discovered trash in the garden once again. Checking the footage, we were surprised to find the culprit identified so easily. The security camera showed a woman with long blonde hair casually tossing a garbage bag with her right hand. Not only her appearance but her face was clearly captured. Maria whispered,
I feel like I've seen this person before.
Despite thinking hard, she couldn't recall, so we waited for Charles to return. That night, when Charles came home, we promptly showed him the footage. His revelation left us astounded.
This person. It's Ms. Brown, my junior.
Apparently, she had been pursuing him persistently. Initially, he gently declined, but as things escalated, he revealed Maria's existence and firmly rejected her advances. Given this context, her recent actions weren't hard to imagine.
That's why I recognized her.
But will the police take action? You know how stalkers can be stubborn. I wondered. Robert reassured us.
We have solid evidence. It should be fine. Let's start by explaining.
The police took the situation seriously, contrary to my expectations. Thanks to their intervention, the woman named Brown received a stern warning from the police. She was also required to sign an agreement at her workplace, promising not to approach Maria and Charles. Ultimately, she was transferred to another state. It appears that her motive for such actions was indeed harassment. However, there was one unexpected twist. Her ill intent was directed not at Charles but at Maria, the woman who took Charles away from her. It was a case of misdirected anger, to say the least. Nevertheless, our home returned to peace once again. Time flew by. Maria's belly grew larger, and she was admitted to the hospital for childbirth. As I prepared for her hospitalization, gathered postpartum necessities, and ran around attending to various tasks, memories from the past resurfaced. When I gave birth to Maria, it was a difficult labor, and I went through quite an ordeal. Although it happened over 20 years ago, every detail remained vivid in my memory. Now, being in the position of an observer, I felt deep emotions. Maria went into labor one night, Consequently, Robert and I stayed home while Charles accompanied her.
I'm looking forward to it.
Robert said. His words seemed to blend genuine anticipation with a touch of sadness. Understandably so, he wouldn't be able to see his first grandchild's face. As I pondered how to respond, Robert seemed to read my thoughts and quietly continued.
Throughout my life, I've never deeply regretted losing my sight, but this time, it stings a little. I wish I could have seen my grandchild's face.
In your place. I'll see it plenty. Didn't I promise to be your eyes, Robert?
Even if I say that, it won't change anything, and you are having trouble answering.
Clearly, he saw through even the smallest details.
With this strange ability, I still can't see my grandchild's face. Hey, would you join me for a drink?
Certainly. Of course. My abilities are limited, but if sharing a drink can ease his burden, I'll extend my hand. Restless and unable to sleep, I welcomed the morning at 6 o'clock on the sofa. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Charles. It seemed our grandchild had been born safely. Robert, wake up! Maria did her best. Let's go to the hospital. I shook my sleeping husband next to me and hurriedly started getting ready. It was a weekday morning, and the hospital seemed quieter than usual. The sparse foot traffic included patients in pajamas heading toward the shop. Amidst this scene, I noticed a shadow that emitted an indescribable sense of suspicion. The figure didn't appear overly suspicious, yet its inability to blend in with the surroundings felt peculiar. Robert seemed to sense something too.
Something feels different. Is someone there?
When I mentioned the shadow, Robert muttered,
Don't approach recklessly,
and tapped the floor with his white cane. I took his hand, casting a sidelong glance at the mysterious person. Maria! Charles! When we arrived in the hospital room, there were two others, a tiny life.
Good morning, both of you. How are you feeling?
Good morning. Nothing's wrong. The baby is doing well.
I see. That was good.
After that, Robert frowned. So I helped him sit down. I asked if he was feeling unwell, but apparently, he wasn't. For now, we decided to share our joy. Have you decided on a name? Charles replied.
Not yet. We didn't even know the gender, so we would decide after the birth. By the way, it's a girl.
I see. I hope she gets a good name. Our granddaughter slept in Maria's arms on the bed. Seeing her, I remembered Maria as a baby. Maria said,
Mom, want to hold her?
Is it okay? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, weight, and scent were all identical. The innocent, adorable sight softened my expression. Look, it's Grandma and Grandpa. As we were about to entrust the little one to Robert, something unexpected happened. He was drenched in sweat, trembling violently.
Wait, what's wrong?
Robert stammered.
Don't let that baby near me!
I looked at Maria and Charles. They were equally shocked. It was clear that this wasn't a misunderstanding.
Wait, what are you saying?
Charles wondered.
Is something wrong?
No, it's different. I feel a burning heat. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrifying heat from that fire.
Could it be that he sensed something from this baby? I left our granddaughter with Maria and stood by Robert. His trembling subsided, but he still breathed heavily, shoulders rising and falling. "Are you okay?" Robert nodded.
I've calmed down a bit. Can we talk?
Yes, of course. I followed Robert out of the room to a nearby resting area. Robert apologized for startling me.
That baby is fine.
He assured. Then he began to explain.
I probably picked up on someone's emotions nearby. It was more intense than anything I've felt before. Burning resentment, anger. It was so vivid that I lost my composure. Sorry, the timing was bad.
No need to apologize. It's beyond your control. The feelings of resentment and anger. I had a hunch. Ms. Brown, the woman who received a stern warning from the police and was transferred due to her ill intent. Could she be approaching again? I knew the probability was incredibly low, but I couldn't shake it off. Maybe. I started to say, but Robert interrupted.
Yeah, it's not impossible. Besides, you mentioned a suspicious person in the lobby earlier. She might still be nearby. Can you search?
Understood. I enlisted Charles for the search. Walking around with my husband and Maria wasn't practical. But I didn't want to search alone. So, I asked Charles to accompany me, because he knew Ms. Brown's face well. However, despite thoroughly searching most of the areas accessible to the public, we failed to locate her. We returned to the hospital room, hoping it was just an unfounded concern. Charles reassured us that the hospital was safer, with more people around, and he would stay with Maria.
You both should go home and rest,
he said. That makes sense. Well then, take care of Maria, I replied.
Understood. Oh, and if anything happens, please call,
Charles added. Robert and I suppressed our anxiety and headed home. Although I didn't tell Robert, I wished I could have seen our granddaughter's face more clearly. I wondered whether she'd resemble Maria or Charles. What name would they choose for her? Tonight, once again, I'd likely have a restless night. Several hours later, in the evening, Robert uttered unsettling words once more.
It's happening again. I feel it, a burning heat. What is this?
Apparently, it wasn't a typical hospital-related illness. So, perhaps his mysterious ability was picking up even stronger emotions. The issue lay in those stronger emotions. Currently, there was only one possibility, and it was dangerously concerning. I pondered my next steps carefully. While part of me wanted to call the police immediately, I lacked concrete evidence. Personally verifying the situation could be futile or even life-threatening. Suddenly, I remembered the security cameras. Right. Checking those might provide some evidence. Excitedly, I reviewed the footage, but unfortunately, nothing appeared. Just as I felt stuck, a single ray of light seemed to descend from above. My smartphone vibrated, a message from Charles.
Are you okay?
Reluctantly, I decided to seek his help. I explained everything truthfully, and he replied succinctly.
Understood. I'm on my way.
I felt powerless. It was frustrating to be unable to act during such critical moments, even though I knew I wasn't at fault. After about 30 minutes, Charles returned. According to Robert, the sensation of heat was gradually intensifying. If we took his words at face value, it meant that a malevolent force was closing in. We promptly began searching the area around the house with Charles, and I grabbed a mop for self-defense. The sun had fully set, and while not pitch black, it was quite dim, a perfect backdrop for fear. Suddenly, a noise, both Charles and I heard it. It came from the back of the house, unmistakably accompanied by a human presence.
I'll check the back. Please contact the police just in case,
Charles said. I followed his advice, returned inside, and reported to the police.
Suspect apprehended. Repeat, suspect apprehended.
The police confirmed. Unbelievable. Someone had indeed been lurking. The glimpse of her profile left no doubt. It was undoubtedly Ms. Brown, the woman. She was quietly escorted by multiple officers and placed into a police car. According to the police, she had been carrying a firelighter and a lighter. The implications were clear, the worst-case scenario. As soon as I realized we were safe, my legs gave way, and I couldn't stand.
Are you okay?
Charles asked. Yes, I'm fine. My legs just went weak once I felt safe. Charles's courageous actions were commendable, but without Robert's mysterious ability, what might have happened? Speaking of Robert, he had completely calmed down and returned to his usual cheerful self.
I have mixed feelings. Anyway, I'm relieved nothing happened. Am I really more extraordinary than I thought?
Charles replied.
Not just more than you thought. You're practically in the realm of superpowers.
Oh. If only I were a bit younger, maybe I could have been of more help to people.
Later, we learned that on that day, Ms. Brown had indeed infiltrated the hospital where Maria was admitted, intending harm. To make matters worse, her target wasn't Charles or Maria, it was their newborn granddaughter. Apparently, she harbored a selfish grudge after being transferred due to rumors of stalking at her previous workplace. However, on the day of the incident, the hospital's crowded environment forced her to abandon her plan. Instead, she decided to set the house on fire out of frustration. The heat Robert felt was undoubtedly the manifestation of this malevolent intent. After being taken into custody by the police, she awaited appropriate punishment in detention. Just when we thought true peace had returned, something unexpected happened. Ms. Brown's parents arrived, introducing themselves.
We deeply apologize for the inconvenience our daughter caused.
Her father said.
Once she's released, we'll take her back home and keep a close watch.
Her mother added. While it seemed they weren't seeking forgiveness, Robert wasn't present. He had gone with Charles that morning to pick up Maria from the hospital. Their sincerity was evident, but ultimately, we couldn't discern their true intentions. Naturally, I didn't invite them inside and politely saw them off at the doorstep. Later, a chilling question arose: why did they know our home's location? Realizing this, I decided to expedite the relocation plans I had been considering. With Maria safely discharged and our family expanded, I candidly explained the situation. We need to move soon, I told Robert. He took the initiative, joining Charles and me to explore various locations, reading the energies around us. Fortunately, we found a suitable home that satisfied everyone. It dawned on me, I hadn't fully believed in Robert's abilities until now. This incident made me wonder if he possessed true superpowers. The new house is a comfortable barrier-free property. Robert, and even our new family member, Karen, will find it accommodating. With this change, I hope Maria, Charles, and I can live here with peace of mind. The threat that once loomed over us has dissipated. I'm genuinely looking forward to starting a new life in this fresh environment. But... Hey, Charles. Can I ask you something?
Yes? What is it? Do you need any help?
No, not that. I just want to know, do you think it was a good decision for you to live with us? You should be a newlywed, filled with happiness, and now even with a daughter.
Well, I've mentioned this before. I wanted to be a good son. I've always longed for a family, so this is... well... it's good.
As I struggled to find words, he continued.
And also, I'm truly grateful to both of you.
Grateful?
Yes! If Robert hadn't been here, who knows what might have happened? And you believed in that, which is why everything ended without any incidents. If one of you were missing, I can't imagine the outcome. So, filial piety and repaying kindness, having this opportunity,
Thank you! This time, I could see it even without Robert's abilities. Charles isn't lying.
How was this story for you? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.